Welcome back to Carolina This Week. This past weekend, many Tea Partiers, hundreds of Tea Partiers from around South Carolina gathered in Myrtle Beach to talk about a lot of different things, and a lot of politicians came to see it. Our Ryan Knockham was there and filed this report.
At South Carolina's Tax Enough Already Party's second convention, leaders preached an agenda against the Democratic Party and the political back and forth in Washington.
We should be passing Republican-flavored legislation out of a Republican-controlled House.
On Saturday, Congressman Jeff Duncan spoke in front of a crowd of a little more than 200 people, and he explained how he likened the gun control debate to soldiers returning home from the Revolutionary War.
And when we drafted the Constitution and adopted it in 1787, and they came back and put the Second Amendment in there, they didn't say, oh, you can have a squirrel rifle or a deer rifle or a shotgun, but you can't have those rifles you took off those British soldiers. That's wrong. No, they didn't do that. Those weapons were the AR-15s of the day. There were no restrictions placed on those weapons by our founding fathers.
The convention also brought Republican leaders on the rise in Washington, and another considering a return to politics.
Well, I'm in the final sort of gut check on whether or not to run for Congress.
Recently, Governor Mark Sanford's name surfaced as someone to replace newly appointed Senator Tim Scott's seat in the U.S. House.
I'm going to decide it here over the weekend. Gut is fairly well locked down, but I just day at a time, day at a time.
But while the gathering shared anticipation and excitement, the amount of emptiness through the crowd was glaring. Dozens of empty chairs freckled the meeting room that had one demographic strongly in attendance. But Sanford and Congressman Tom Rice say the Tea Party does not see a lack of diversity or enthusiasm.
There's a lot of folks who aren't particularly engaged in politics, but share a common set of beliefs on limited government.
They are vocal and concerned about the issues of the day. They're vocal and concerned about the continuation of our freedoms in our country. And I think everybody's concerned about that to some point.
In Myrtle Beach, Ryan Knockham, WPDE News Channel 15.
And one of the persons really responsible for putting that convention on was Joe Dugan, president of the Myrtle Beach Tea Party, or chairman of the Myrtle Beach Tea Party. Chairman. He joins us now, and thanks for being with us, Joe.
Good to be on with you again, Tim.
Now, I want to be fair, because Ryan did mention in that story that you had a lot of, there were dozens of empty chairs, but as you and I were talking before the show, this was invitation only, and you invited 600, and you got about over 400 of those 600 to show.
440 to be exact.
And quite a list of speakers there, and we just saw Mark Sanford, who didn't speak but was there as he was making up his mind whether to run for the 1st District seat. He has decided to run for the 1st District seat. Mark Sanford seems to me, and I don't want to spend a lot of time talking to him because he won't represent us, but from when I've interviewed him before, he seems like he was Tea Party before there was Tea Party.
Well, he's got a lot of tea running through his veins, but I think that we should be looking at all the candidates in the 1st District because this is about our country. It's not just about the districts and their constituents. We're facing a crisis in this nation, and every congressman that is elected from South Carolina and every other state has a very important role to play right now at this turning point in history.
Joe, you've always played it a little bit more on the national level than on the local level. Nationally, we've got a lot going on right now with talks of gun control, with talks of the debt ceiling. Let's talk about gun control, which really took center stage last week. How do you feel about gun control? How do you feel about the president's recommendations of limiting the amount of high-capacity magazines, different types of assault weapons, background checks, things like that?
If our founding fathers had automatic weapons in the Revolutionary War, do you think that they would use them? I do. They were fighting an enemy that they wanted to defeat. And the criminals that attack our society are enemies, as well as foreign threats. And we don't want to fight these wars that we have to fight against the criminal element and foreign sources with one hand tied behind our back. The Constitution is very clear in the Second Amendment and in every amendment, and we are shredding it to bits. This president has no right by executive order to change any one of any one element of our U.S. Constitution. That is the law of the land. If you try and go around the law of the land, it's illegal. It's illegal. And we have ignored the Constitution. It irks me no end that all of our elected officials take an oath to the Constitution when they are sworn into office and then turn around 10 minutes later and violate that oath. I think they should be prosecuted for perjury.
Let's talk about the debt ceiling, which is another thing that Congress is going to be talking about here before long. Do you think that do you think the debt ceiling should be raised again, or do you think more needs to be cut before that ceiling's raised, with the threat of defaulting on some of our bills and having our credit rating go down?
Let's look at what happened during the fiscal cliff negotiations, because that directly relates to what is going to come up with our national debt. And here we have before us the example of Europe, who has, through a socialist society, made so many false promises to people that now they are trying to renege on those promises, and it's resulting in rioting in the streets. And I can see where people would be quite upset when they are made promises about their pensions and so forth, and then those promises are taken away. This fiscal cliff negotiation, it raised spending by $44 to every dollar it cut. And the dollar it cut will never be cut. They didn't cut anything last year. These are phantom cuts that they're talking about. And when you are living beyond your means, such as we are, borrowing 41 cents out of every dollar that we spend in this country, you're going to reach a point where you no longer can borrow money. And that's going to result in interest rates skyrocketing, and with what the Federal Reserve is doing in printing this money out of nowhere, it's devaluing our dollar, seriously decelerating our standard of living. It's dropping like a rock, the standard of living in this country. Our economy is stagnant. Nobody's getting raises. Nobody can keep up with the additional taxes and fees. And if you have a society such as we had, which is 70% based on consumer spending, there's no recovery in sight if the consumer has fewer dollars to spend, and those dollars are worth less.
Is there room for compromise with Tea Party Republicans? Do you think that compromise to accomplish your goals can work? A lot of people say that's their complaint with it, is there's no room for compromise.
Well, there is absolutely room for compromise, but the other side, and by the other side I mean both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they have to use a little common sense. To give you just one example that was talked about during our convention, our energy policy. I mean, we are standing on the resources of this nation in oil and natural gas that will last us hundreds of years. I've read where China pays 16 times the amount for natural gas as we do in this country. And through new technology such as fracking, we have 400 years worth of natural gas. And yet this president, in my opinion, is, from the day he took office, bound and determined to destroy the American economy. He will not allow us to take those resources we have and use them to improve our balance of trade, to raise the standard of living for the American people. And it's just unbelievable what is going on under our noses.
Joe, we got to take a break. When we come back, I just want to talk a little bit about the future of the Tea Party. We don't have much time left. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Carolina This Week. Joe Dugan, the chairman of the Myrtle Beach Tea Party, is with us now. I want to talk quickly about the future of the Tea Party. The Tea Party's never really been a coalesced movement that has like its own national convention, things like that. You drew a lot of attention from even some national media and bloggers by having the Tea Party really come together in South Carolina some might say has won. Is this a sign of things to come?
Well, we've always tried to work close together, and this was an attempt to bring everyone together, to bring not only from the state of South Carolina. We had many out-of-state visitors, and we were scheduled to have, we did have, the head of the Tea Party Patriots, Jenny Beth Martin. We were scheduled to have Matt Kibbe, the head of Freedom Works. An emergency came up, and we had Dr. Wayne Breaux from Freedom Works, and we were scheduled to have Tim Phillips, the president of Americans for Prosperity, and another emergency arose. I told people at the convention on Saturday that if they ever heard of Murphy's Law, Murphy had 15 suites in that Springgate Hotel. But we worked around it, and everything was fabulous. I can't tell you how enthused the people were. They were jammed downstairs signing books by all the authors that came. It was just a wonderful event, and we hope to carry the message forward. Our biggest problem as a Tea Party, on a local level, state level, national level, is that we just need ears to listen to our message. Our message sells itself because our message is the American dream. And we want to keep that American dream. You never heard of a French dream. It's been the American dream, where we have the Statue of Liberty welcomes immigrants to come into this country and experience freedom and let their talents rise to the top.
If you want to hear more of the Tea Party's message, you can head to your website, carolinalive.com. Go to the News tab, and under the News tab, you'll see Carolina This Week tab. Click on that, look for this story, click the link, and you have, I think, just about the entire convention.
Yes.
All of them will be there eventually. Some of them are there now. All right.
Mostly.
Joe Dugan, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim.
We'll be right back.